ill. They walk, he recovers. Okay. He keeps yo-yoing in and out of wellness. And then in her
So is
third
everybody
she
ready
becomes
to get
even
started?
more
Let's
categorical
get going
about
underway. First of all, we'd like to thank everybody in person and in the online space for joining us this evening. But before getting really underway with the excellent program we have for all of you this evening, our Deputy Director, Adrian Garcia, will be providing some brief remarks on behalf of our Executive Director, Chad Lassiter.
Good evening for those of you present and those of you online. Muy buenas noches a todos los que están presentes y los que están en línea. My name is Adrian Garcia, Deputy Director of Regional Operations and Housing for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. And it's my pleasure to provide opening remarks on behalf of Executive Director Chad Dion Lassiter. The one common denominator that we have in this country today is hate. It permeates and acts as a cancer to the human spirit. And so E.D. Lassiter saw this many years ago, almost 8 years ago, and we've seen it throughout history. And so he embarked upon a different approach of how we deal with hate in its different forms. And so the birth of the No Hate in Our State town hall surged. And the idea behind this is to talk about relevant issues that cause separation and division, exclusiveness, and otherness, and to figure out ways that different partners in the community and government structures can work together to battle, to contribute to a more peaceful solution, and hopefully to our own humanity. And so it's with that concept that I want to say thank you to the Mexican Consulate for hosting us and for hosting this town hall. And I congratulate everyone here and everyone that is online for being present for this very important conversation. Thank you.
So now I want to get started by introducing our amazing panelists this evening. But before I do that, I'm just going to say this evening we're going to throw you off a little bit because we may or may not get in and out of Spanish. We do have a panelist that's going to be doing that for us, the Honorable Consul from the Dominican Republic. So this will be a fun evening. You know, I think Bad Bunny said a few months ago you guys had 4 months to learn Spanish. So I hope you guys use that wisely. So without further ado, I want to start introducing our panelists. And I'll start off with our gracious host for this evening. And that would be, one moment. For some reason, my paper here is not showing it. So excuse the clumsiness for a hot second. I'm looking for it now. Thank you. For some reason, it was much appreciated. So, first of all, we want to introduce our gracious host, Carlos G. Obrador Garrido Cuesta. He is the Consul of Mexico for the Philadelphia office. He was born in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico. Carlos Obrador has a degree in international relations, graduated from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, Faculty of Political and Social Sciences. He has pursued several seminars in the North American region, international law, foreign policy of Mexico, consular protection, consular services, and cultural issues. Carlos Obrador is a career member of the Mexican Foreign Services since 1993. He was head of the Department of the Consular Protection of Mexicans in Canada until 1997. Head of the Mexican Seasonal Agriculture Workers Program at the Consulate General of Mexico in Toronto. Head of the Office of Trade Promotion and Tourism at the Embassy of Mexico in Canada. At the Consulate of Mexico in Eagle Pass, he served as Deputy Consul from 2009 to 2011, Deputy Consul and Cultural Attaché at the Consulate General of Mexico in Boston from 2012 to 2014. He also served as Deputy Director General for Latin America and the Caribbean in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from August 2014 to June 2016. He served as the head of Consul of Mexico in Del Rio, Texas from June 2016 to October 2019. And as of November 1st of 2019, he now serves as our consul here in Philadelphia. Once again, thank you for hosting us this evening. We also want to acknowledge DA Larry Krasner, who is the 26th District Attorney of Philadelphia, taking office in January of 2018, winning re-election in 2021 and in 2025. A progressive former criminal defense and civil rights attorney, he ran on a platform to end mass incarceration and cash bail for certain crimes and hold police accountable. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri, to a World War II veteran father and an evangelist mother. He earned his undergraduate degree from the University of Chicago in 1983 and a law degree from Stanford Law School in 1987. For 30 years, he worked as a public defender and private civil rights attorney, often representing protesters from groups like Black Lives Matter and Occupy Philadelphia. As I previously mentioned, he was elected in 2017, not just elected, in a landslide victory, as a political outsider promising to reform the DA's office. Some of his key initiatives and policies are criminal justice reform, focusing on reducing mass incarceration by pursuing alternatives to prison, police accountability by prosecuting several on-duty officers for misconduct, policy changes, instructed prosecutors to stop seeking cash bail for certain misdemeanors and non-violent offenses, conviction integrity, established an active conviction integrity unit. In his personal life, he is married to Lisa M. Rao, a retired Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas judge, and they have 2 sons. Once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We now go to Ms. Marisabel Isel from PA Migrant Education. She is a dedicated advocate for immigrant rights and a student support specialist with extensive experience in education, nonprofit leadership, and community service across PA and Texas. Marisabel Isel currently serves as a student support specialist for the Chester County Intermediate Unit Migrant Education Program, where she supports migrant students and contributes to educational initiatives for immigrant families in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Her previous experience includes positions as a resource parent coordinator at Consulate in Dallas, Texas, and a resource home coordinator at the Northeast Treatment Centers, where she supported foster and resource families. Early in her career, she worked as a systems programmer for SunGard Higher Education and held roles in intake coordination and family support programs for Lutheran children and family services and other community organizations across Pennsylvania. With a strong commitment to advancing immigrant rights, Marisabel combines her background in education, technology, and community service to empower students and families, fostering inclusive and supportive environments in both educational and nonprofit settings. Now, I'd also like to introduce the excuse me, I'm a little excited. I want to get started. So now I also want to introduce the Consul of the Dominican Republic, Lourdes Herrera. She is the Consul General of the Dominican Republic here in Philadelphia. Lourdes Cecilia Herrera Tejada is a professional with over 30 years of experience in public administration, personnel management, and strategic leadership. Her background in industrial psychology, complemented by a postgraduate degree in personnel evaluation and selection, has allowed her to develop strong skills in planning, organizational leadership, and process optimization in both governmental and private institutions. She has held key positions in public administration, serving as director of the Office of the President of the Republic from 2020 to 2024, where she led the planning of the presidential agenda, coordinated official events, and supervised personnel, ensuring efficiency in government management. Previously, she was the personal assistant to Luis Abinader from 2014 to 2020, playing a fundamental role in organizing his political and operational agenda. In the energy sector, she held the position of Secretary General of the Dominican Corporation of State Electrical Companies, where she oversaw the administrative functioning of the institution and was responsible for the Secretariat of Minutes of the Board of Directors. Additionally, she coordinated projects funded by multilateral organizations such as the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank, strengthening her experience in managing international programs. In the private sector, she has held leadership positions at Grupo Abacor, where she excelled in strategic project management and team administration. In the political sphere, she has been a key figure in the consolidation of the Modern Revolutionary Party, of which she is a founding member, holding high-level roles such as Second National Deputy Secretary and member of the Executive Directorate. She also served as first vice president and acting president of the Dominican Social Alliance, promoting its growth and modernization. On August 23rd, 2024, she was appointed Consul General of the Dominican Republic in Philadelphia, assuming the responsibility of strengthening ties between the Dominican community and the state, ensuring an efficient, transparent, and continuously improving consular management. Let's give her a round of applause. That's a very extensive experience. And then lastly, but surely not least, our very own hearing examiner, Tamara Shahadi Cope. She is a hearing examiner with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, Pennsylvania's leading civil rights enforcement agency. In her current role, H.E. Shahadi Cope serves as an independent adjudicator and presides over hearings relating to alleged discrimination in employment, housing, commercial property, education, and public accommodations. Prior to joining the commission, H.E. Shahadi Cope practiced immigration law for nearly a decade and served particularly vulnerable communities throughout the Commonwealth. Her past work includes providing group and individual orientations on removal proceedings to immigrant detainees through the Department of Justice's Legal Orientation Program, as well as removal defense representation to asylum seekers in immigration court. H.E. Shahadi Cope also represented represented non-citizen survivors of intimate partner violence and human trafficking in their applications for immigration relief before USCIS. She continues to partner with community stakeholders across Pennsylvania to provide trauma-informed advocacy to crime victims and to facilitate access to free legal services. She's also a native New Yorker who graduated from Fordham University and the City University of New York, Cooney School of Law, before moving to Pennsylvania, where she now resides. Let's give her a round of applause. Now, with that said, I'd like to get into our program for this evening. And so the first part of this discussion is going to touch upon the historical discussion on xenophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment. So I know that all of you looked at these, but I'd like to give the floor here to our Consul Carlos Obrador to start us off. And sure. Yeah. I'm going to read the question to you and then we'll pass the microphone along. He's more excited than I am. So, to understand the present, right, we must look at the foundations of how the stranger has been viewed throughout history. Modern anti-immigrant sentiment often echoes a long, painful lineage of exclusion. Let's explore the historical weight behind that imagery and language used against those seeking a new life. Speaking of the weight of the imagery, Consul Obrador, why is the use of dehumanizing metaphors such as infestation or invasion fundamentally different from a standard policy debate? And how do these terms mirror historical pre-genocidal rhetoric? And I will
You
to
the-
you.
Okay, thank you. Gracias. First of all, I would like to welcome everybody to the Consulate of Mexico in Philadelphia. It is an honor to have you all, and of course, to be among this group of distinguished panelists. Hector, thank you very much for putting together this extremely important event. Given the circumstances that we are all experiencing and living and being witnesses of so many things. I would like to start by paying tribute to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Let's not forget his incredible job throughout the many years as a disciple, first of Dr. Martin Luther King, and then he always advocated, I will always remember Reverend Jackson advocating the unity, working together across different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, Hispanics, Latinos, with the African American community, the Asian American community, and also everybody. So it's and today that we unfortunately learn about his passing, it's something that I wanted to mention because of all his work fighting, for the civil rights in this country. That civil rights it touches every single nationality, and as we are seeing it now. So I want to start with that. And also to mention that unfortunately, in the case of Mexico, what is happening, what we are seeing in other parts of the United States, not along the border, like what happened in Minneapolis, Chicago, Seattle, the unfortunate loss of life, it's something that we are very familiar along the border. In the last, just to give you an idea, a figure, since 2010, more than 300 migrants, and not only migrants, because there were also different, citizens and permanent residents, but mostly migrants, have lost their life in encounters with on-duty officers of Border Patrol and ICE. So 300 since 2010. What is happening now is that a lot of people is waking up to the tragedies that the communities along the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, have been experiencing for many years. But there is, of course, a lot of work to be done. And that's why I guess forums like this one, where we come together, different organizations on their own respective fields, and working for a common cause, which I see the common cause is making sure that everybody respects, especially the authorities, respect the Constitution, respect the human rights, the labor rights, the dignity of everybody. And so I'm just extremely honored again to be among this group of distinguished panelists, organizations, of course, that make a change, a very positive change on their daily work. And so, as we say in Spanish, la unión hace la fuerza, we are stronger together. And I'll leave it there for, for now. We diplomats have a handicap, which is we tend to speak a lot. So I will leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul Obrador. So I'm also going to ask the same question, but now in Spanish to our consul from the Dominican Republic. Cónsul. Dama consulora, vamos a dirigirnos hacia usted, vamos a hacerle la pregunta de la misma forma. ¿Por qué el uso de metáforas deshumanizantes como infestación o invasión son fundamentalmente distintas a una política regular que se utiliza en un debate normativo? ¿Y cómo es que esto normalmente se parece, el utilizar esas metáforas, a lingüísticas históricamente consideradas metáforas como genocidas? ¿Qué pasó aquí el micrófono?
Sí.
Buenas tardes, gracias por invitarme a este panel. Lamento realmente que hablo muy poco inglés y también entiendo muy poco inglés, pero estoy aquí presente como representante de la República Dominicana, del gobierno y de nuestro Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores.
Va a traducirle, le va a traducir.
This evening, I'm very sorry that I don't speak a lot of English nor understand it. But, you know, thank you for allowing me to speak on such an important issue this evening.
En el ejercicio diplomático debemos ser cuidadosos, con analogías absolutas. Sin embargo, entendemos que el lenguaje que deshumaniza o generaliza debilita la convivencia y la alerta a tensiones sociales.
We know that in this kind of, in the society and culture that we live, it is important that we are aware of the use of dehumanizing language and rhetoric, as it not only weakens, but destabilizes society as a whole.
Para la República Dominicana, este enfoque no es circunstancial. Nuestra política exterior se guía por los principios constitucionales que colocan la dignidad humana, el respeto a los derechos fundamentales y el apego al derecho internacional, como referente de la acción del Estado. Desde esa base, nuestra misión institucional es aportar a la convivencia pacífica y a la igualdad de derechos y oportunidades.
So this, from the view and lens of the Dominican Republic, this issue is not viewed in a circumstantial way. We view this from the lens of action, international, from the constitutional principles of protecting individuals and their humanity. We have to ensure that our actions are not taken in such a way where it harms those around us, which is why international work on these issues, such as this one, is important.
Apegados siempre, por supuesto, a los reglamentos del país donde nos encontremos, pero es nuestra misión real tratar de trabajar por nuestros conciudadanos y darles los apoyos necesarios, siempre respetando las reglas del territorio donde estamos. Muchísimas gracias.
So we also have to obviously ensure that we are respecting the laws of the country that we are in, but it is our duty to ensure that we protect our compatriots at every turn, with the principle in mind that we are still abroad and we have to respect those local laws. So I have this beautiful microphone here, so I don't need it anymore.
Okay.
So you guys can now share it amongst yourselves. Muchísimas gracias, Consul. So then I want to then jump to, we'll come back, but I like having a little fun with you guys because you're all very intelligent people. So I wanted to jump really quickly to the legal section. And we know that history provides the why, but the law provides the how. For our protection in Pennsylvania, our primary shield against discrimination is the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, which is enforced by the PHRC. So my question goes to H.E. Shahari Cup. So the PHRA prohibits discrimination based on national origin and ancestry in employment, housing, and education. How can we better educate the public that these protections apply to individuals regardless of their immigration status?
Thank you so much, O.C. Torres Diaz, and thank you for having us today. I'm so happy to be part of this wonderful esteemed panel. So really, I think as far as the work that we do at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission goes, I think we've made really significant connections. We're very fortunate in that we have wonderful relationships with fellow Commonwealth agencies. We have, a lot of good relationships with community stakeholders, nonprofits on the ground doing the work. And so I think, in our Civil Rights Division, our amazing civil rights outreach coordinators who have this amazing rapid response model. So when things are happening throughout the Commonwealth that require specific attention, we're able to respond accordingly. When it comes to outreach and spreading information and just wanting to ensure that individuals are in the best position they can be, it's especially important because, we've built this amazing network. I think, especially now where there's a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity in our communities, it's incredibly important to have these coalitions and to continue to build upon these coalitions. That said, I think it's important and something that I tend to constantly shout from the rooftops, and I know I hope everyone leaves from here today remembering is that civil rights protections protect people, right? They don't protect categories. And what I mean by that is that discrimination is something that impacts us all, right? It's not something that we're immune by. Something that maybe we'll talk about a little later with regards to national origin discrimination and ancestry is not only, whether or not you actually are from a specific place or that your ancestors hail from a specific place, but there's this really important idea that even the perception is, can result in a discriminatory act that can then be reported to the PHRC. So, I think it's easy to conflate immigration status and, discrimination based on national origin and ancestry, but they are distinct. And, perpetrators or, individuals who discriminate against others will oftentimes also conflate the two, and they're not always going to ask, oh, well, what is your, immigration status and the like. So anyway, I think just the important message is that, the two things are legally distinct, that people, discrimination is something that impacts us all, regardless of status, right? It doesn't matter if you're newly arrived to the United States, if you're a U.S. citizen, if you've been here for generations, no one is immune from that. And we're seeing that, right, in 2026, more so than ever, that everyone it can be made subject, right, to certain kinds of victimization. So I think moving forward, continued partnerships with communities that provide services to individuals, regardless of status. It's important, obviously, to reach out to organizations that serve immigrant communities. But I also think, it's important to do as widespread of an outreach as possible to agencies and organizations that just serve the general public. Because again, even if someone it might not necessarily relate to something that someone's experiencing at the moment, more likely than not, you're going to know someone who can benefit from the information that we're providing. And so, with regards to the PHRC and discrimination specifically, it's especially important. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So I'm just going to quickly summarize what you said for those here and online that may not necessarily understand English completely. And that's what I'm here
I
for.
should have slowed down. I apologize.
No, because that's important. We want to make sure that the information is provided in the best way possible. Pero para nuestras personas que posiblemente aquí o en línea no entiendan el inglés por completo o del todo, un pequeño resumen de lo que se acabó de dialogar aquí es que sobre la inmigración y la línea que corre con nuestra acta de derechos civiles en Pensilvania. Y algo importante, lo más importante que se deben llevar de lo que la señorita Sheharikov indica, es que cuando se tratan de los derechos civiles en Pensilvania con nuestra agencia y su estatus migratorio, eso es irrelevante. Y uno no se puede dejar llevar por la percepción de que alguien pueda ser inmigrante o su ascendencia o su origen nacional, porque personas que discriminan o personas que piensan que han sido discriminadas en su contra a veces confunden el estatus migratorio con discriminación de origen nacional. Pero lo importante de entender es que todos benefician de acudir a nuestros servicios porque nosotros les ayudamos sin importar el estatus migratorio de la persona que esté tratando de acudir a aquellos servicios. But now that we've touched upon the PHRA, I'd like to turn quickly to DA Krasner. So we know that, we've briefly touched about civil rights protections in the PHRA. But we know that the criminal justice system is often where the most high-stakes interactions occur. For our immigrant neighbors, as the DA of Pennsylvania's largest city, you have been at the center of a debate of how local law enforcement should and shouldn't interact with federal immigration authorities. And what in our research, as we were writing these questions, as we understood your immigration net neutrality doctrine. Your office has championed the idea of immigration neutrality in plea bargaining. How can you explain why ensuring a low-level misdemeanor doesn't lead to a disproportionate punishment like deportation is a matter of justice rather than special treatment?
Thank you all. Can you hear me?
There we
All
go.
right. Let me give a little background because I think it is a little bit more complicated than that. We have a thing in the United States. It is a law. It's called the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was passed decades ago. And what it says is that equal treatment is not identical treatment. It is equal treatment for a person in a wheelchair to have a ramp, even though people who walk without a wheelchair don't need a ramp. That is equality. That is what equality looks like. And so that is a principle that we have applied in our office in many different contexts. When you have people who are suffering from mental illness, equal treatment is not identical treatment. When you have people living on the street who are unhoused, equal treatment is not identical treatment. The people who already have a house don't need a house. Well, these same principles apply if you are a person who is in a vulnerable immigration status and you have a criminal case that will have an unfair impact on them compared to the crime. So what do I mean by that? If there is a person who is charged with rape, with murder, with shooting people, I don't care what their immigration status is. They can be deported. That is not my concern. And I'm just going to be very direct with you. On the other hand, if you have an undocumented person who has been living in Philadelphia for 15 years, works 12 hours a day, supports their family, pays taxes, pays their rent, and they go out on a Saturday night and they are found, let's just say, to have had too many beers to drink. So they are publicly intoxicated. It is my judgment that it would be unfair, and I'm just making up that crime. That may not be the one we need to worry about, but it's my judgment that we should not have a situation where there's going to be a devastating and unfair consequence simply because that person is an immigrant. So under those circumstances where we think it is appropriate, we will find just as serious a charge that is legally supported, but we will consider whether we are going to pursue that other charge of equal significance given how unfair the immigration consequence could be. As I said, that is not preferential treatment. That is equal treatment. It's the same kind of treatment someone suffering from opioid use disorder, which is drug addiction, will get from our office when we look at what it is that we need to do in order to keep the public safe. It will be equal treatment. It may not be identical treatment to someone who has no drug addiction and is involved in the same situation. So for that reason, we started this process after looking at what had been done in Brooklyn, New York, by Eric Gonzalez, who has been the chief prosecutor there for years. And that has been a part of our approach to all of this. If you would like to hear what this office intends to do to any federal officials who thinks they can commit crimes in Philadelphia, I'm always happy to talk about that too.
And
because one thing about equality is that equality does apply to everyone. And yes, of course, we'll recognize that a federal official is in a slightly different position. It may not be identical treatment, but oh, trust me, if they come here to commit crimes, there will be equal treatment for federal officials.
Thank you very much. Y nuevamente, para poder inyectar a las personas que no son angloparlantes a la discusión, el fiscal Krasner acaba de indicar específicamente sobre su programa de neutralidad migratoria, donde básicamente él se ha apegado al ADA, donde donde la verbología del estatuto indica que tiene que haber trato equitativo, igualitario. Pero el trato equitativo, como ustedes conocen, puede ser, si usted está en una silla de ruedas, le damos a una rampa a ese individuo para que pueda ingresar al mismo edificio que una persona que no tiene esa disfunción física para poder ingresar a un edificio utilizando las escaleras. Abarcándonos a esos principios, de ahí es que él se acercó a un programa que se había comenzado en Brooklyn, Nueva York, por el fiscal de allí, el fiscal Ramos, donde básicamente, si usted es una persona, sí, que está aquí sin estar regularizada, y es una persona que contribuye, que cuida de su familia, que paga sus facturas, que hace sus contribuciones adecuadas, pero sale una noche y se le pasa la mano, posiblemente tomando, por ejemplo, va a haber un trato equitativo. No necesariamente va a ser igual a una persona que quizás no tome, pero si este es su primer cargo, nosotros tenemos que tratarlos con justicia y de manera equitativa para que no haya un trato desigual con un impacto desigual. Con eso dicho, ahora regresamos a nuestro inglés. So now, jumping back, I'm coming back to you, Consul Obrador. Oh, you look a little different. You look a little different, you know. So, going back, now I want to talk about, and like I said, I'm going to be jumping a little bit because I want to make sure that we get all the perspectives and the way they intertwine, especially with the law here. Because I think if we go straight through things, you may lose some of the subtleties. So speaking about the evolution, speaking of equal treatment, let's talk about the evolution of hate. So traditional xenophobic myths often reemerge in modern political discourse. How do these old ideas find new life in digital spaces? And why do they remain so persistent?
Well, thank you, Hector. Well, sadly, every day we see in the news, in social media, that something related to hate is on trending topic. That's very sad. And the fact that now we take a look every 5 seconds to our cell phone, that we live checking, scrolling or the screen, it means that every single minute we receive a lot of information. It doesn't mean that we receive the most accurate information, but the point is that we are overwhelmed with a lot of things that are supposedly happening out there, and we don't make this basic exercise of fact checking. So, for example, let me share with you very quickly an experience that we had recently here at the consulate. Probably you remember that some months ago, sadly, some police officers were killed in York County. And as a protocol, we upload a post in our social media saying, if you are Mexican, just please know that something is going on in this area. If you need assistance for anything, just give us a call. That's it. That's a protocol in case a natural disaster, a political event, or an accident, that kind of stuff. This kind of protocol is very common among embassies and consulates, not only from Mexico, from any embassy or any consulate. And in a matter of minutes, we started receiving hate messages in our social media saying, oh, I bet you are involved with the things that happen to the police officers. And after 60 minutes, we were receiving phone calls from any media that you can imagine, from here, from the US, and even from Europe. So this thing escalated very quickly. So that's the power of the social media now. So and it this is only an example, but it could happen at any time. For example, trying to make a quick research, we found out that in Pennsylvania we have 70 hate groups. 70 hate groups, according to the let me see, let me give you the source, the South Poverty Law Center. They are making a very good effort to depict the hate groups all over the U.S. And Pennsylvania is among the main states with higher hate groups. So having this in mind, we have a big challenge to fight these stories that are not always true. So I think from the Mexican consulate perspective, key element is education. First of all, educate ourselves to see the resources that we have in the community. Second, spread the word. That's very important. If we know that our friends from the district attorney's office has some programs, we can share the word with our friends, allies. If we know that in Philadelphia there's an office dealing with civil rights, like Randy is working, so that's very important to spread the word. And also our experience after more than 20 years working with high-profile cases, we learned that the best way to fight a discrimination case or maybe a hate case is to file a lawsuit before the courts. And that's very important, the legal assistance that we can provide to our nationals. And that's in this step, it's why our allies and friends dealing with legal assistance are crucial. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Para resumir, estamos discutiendo sobre cómo los mitos de la xenofobia tradicional pueden volver a aparecerse en esta época, esta era digital. Y un tema central del discurso fue que nosotros estamos inundados en las redes sociales con mensajes, imágenes información que a veces es incorrecta. Por ejemplo, mientras usted estaba dando su discurso, el caballero de allá, el señor Cristian Colón, me envió una imagen donde a él lo estaban acusando de supuestamente ser uno de los abogados de Antifa del gobernador. Que él está escribiendo leyes y tratando de liberar a personas encarceladas, cuando eso no es cierto. Él pertenece al Consejo Asesor de Asuntos Latinos de la Oficina del Gobernador. Que lo radical que se cambia la información y la razón principal por la cual se mencionó eso es que al cónsul de México, al consulado de México, cuando ocurrió un incidente en Hanover, se les había acusado a ellos de ser partícipes de un incidente que ocurrió con oficiales que estaban tratando de detener un crimen en proceso. Pero lo central es que hay que siempre educarse, educar a sus familiares, a sus amigos y utilizar los sistemas a nuestra disposición, sea un sistema, los tribunales o agencias regulatorias que hagan cumplir las leyes para combatir la discriminación. With that said, I know it's kind of impressive how I go between the two languages, right? I'm just giving myself a harsh pat on the back. I almost threw my back out. But with that said, I want to turn really quickly to a topic we have yet to touch, which is the social implications of xenophobia, because that's why I wanted to go to the evolution of hate, because it's a nice setup for that particular topic. So, going there, speaking of this, so Miss Isen, why do schools, so we're going to talk about the moral weight of these kinds of spaces, right? So why do schools and places of worship carry a specific moral weight that demands they remain welcoming spaces for free from immigration enforcement activity?
Well, I'm not a lawyer to start with, just an educator, but there was always a certain respect for those institutions. And unfortunately, lately, it doesn't seem to be a respect for any institution or any place to be safe for citizens. And not just undocumented citizens or immigrants, but US citizens, legal residents. It doesn't really matter your status, immigration status anymore. It has come, unfortunately, it has become the fear, it's general for everyone. And depending on your background, right now, unfortunately, the Latino community is being targeted more than other communities. And I'm not saying that other immigrant communities are not. In Upper Darby, there was a gentleman from Cambodia who died in detention. And their family wants, something done about it. So Latinos, unfortunately, are being sought out more than other immigrant communities, but it applies to everyone. I'm Catholic and I go to Mass in Upper Darby. That's where I reside. And one day, the church has a Spanish Mass, and usually it's very well attended. And when all the rates and everything started, the number of parishioners that are attending Mass, the Spanish Mass, was reduced at least 50%. So even at church, people do not feel safe. In regards to schools, we are lucky that our school districts I know in Abu Dhabi and in Philadelphia have taken steps to have procedures and protocols in place to make sure that the schools are safe. So they have protocols where immigration cannot come into the schools without a judicial warrant. They do not give information about anybody's status. They have to go through their legal departments. So there are protocols. Unfortunately, once the students or their families are outside of the schools, school buildings, that is not true. It doesn't have the same weight. Since I'm involved in the educational field and we provide support to migrant families, I've had, unfortunately, cases where I get phone calls from the parents informing me my children are not going to school because ICE is at the corner of our house. And there was one instance where a few months ago, ICE was outside one of our elementary schools under their sign, Bywood Elementary School, from 7 o'clock until about 8 o'clock. The children go in at 8:30, 8:45. And they were right there, standing there, because there's pictures and videos of them standing right outside the school. So the intimidation, it's real. And this has a lot of consequences, trauma, but also some of our students are becoming truant because the families are afraid to send them to schools. So it's a very, very serious situation.
Thank you. Básicamente, lo que estábamos discutiendo aquí en este momento era sobre el peso moral que demanda espacios como las iglesias y las escuelas para personas de estatus migratorio, quizás regularizado, quizás no regularizado. Y un punto clave es que estos espacios, por lo menos en el pasado, eran espacios protegidos, respetados, honrados por la comunidad y por las autoridades a todos los niveles. Hoy en día no es el mismo caso. El ejemplo que nuestra presentadora aquí, la señorita Isel, acaba de dar, era que en su propia iglesia, donde ella es miembro, en la misa del grupo hispano, un 50% de sus integrantes ya no están en asistencia, o sea, una contracción de 50%, porque las autoridades de migración se separan en las esquinas para horarios específicos para tratar de velar a estas familias. Con respecto a las escuelas y los distritos escolares, ellos tienen sus políticas y pólizas externas e internas que les impiden acceder a estos espacios sin un permiso judicial, sin autorización de un juez. Pero la escuela acaba y los niños tienen que irse y sus familias tienen que ir a recogerlos. Y lamentablemente muchas de estas familias con temor tienen que sacar a sus niños de las escuelas y están faltando muchísimo porque las autoridades de inmigración se siguen estacionando cerca de las escuelas, tratando de agarrar o intimidar a estas familias que lamentablemente se encuentran en una posición que quizás ellos mismos no estaban buscando. Pero es muy importante siempre tener estas comunidades vulnerables en mente cuando estemos trabajando estos temas. So now going back, I want to stick with you because you opened the door for yourself, unfortunately, but fortunately for me. So you kind of talked about, so you left this aura of the moral weight, but you kind of also opened the door to this community healing aspect that we had discussed in our own personal conversations on the issue. So when we're following a public incident of bias, what are the first steps organizations like the PHRC and its local leaders can take to transition from harmful ignorance to a community-wide educational shift on these kinds of issues?
I think it would be more appropriate for you to answer that.
But to rephrase the question, so you as a person on the ground, how can organizations like ours and your local community leaders at every level assist with an educational shift in this intentional or unintentional bias that we see so prevalent today?
I'm on the board of Centro de Apoyo Comunitario, which is a small nonprofit in Upper Darby. And we do a lot of workshops. Well, we used to. At the present time, we're not even opening our offices because everyone knows that we serve the immigrant community, and we do not want to expose anyone to having a raid in our office or our volunteers to have to suffer that experience. We try to educate our community. I think that's the most important thing. And from there, we have good relationship with other organizations. So we are the first step, like people will communicate with us, and then we try to provide the information, guide them, and search for organizations that will be able to help depending on the situation that happens. Basically, that's what we do. We are a network of organizations that will help the community. We also have WhatsApp groups. So different churches and different organizations have WhatsApp group, and people will send messages. Like this morning at 7:00, there were messages on one of our WhatsApp groups saying ICE is in front of St. Lawrence School and at the Wawa. So there's marked cards. So this is a way for us to share information with the community, and they know the people that are in those WhatsApp groups are people that they can trust. It's people that have been, vetted in some kind of way to be able to provide information. Avoid this area, ICE is there. And we provide workshops. We used to provide workshops for the families to be prepared, like the documentation they need to have, be ready for in case that, one of the parents get detained, what documentations you should have ready, what steps, have someone who the school has an emergency contact for people that can be responsible for your children. Those kinds of workshops, besides other workshops, but getting our community educated on how to proceed in case something happens to them. That's the way that we normally do the work.
Well, thank you. Yo voy a ser un poco menos elocuente que nuestra presentadora aquí, pero para resumir, lo importante de su discurso es que nosotros necesitamos crear sesiones de trabajo, grupos de trabajo, crear espacios virtuales donde las personas puedan recibir información rápido, confiable, pero que sea vetada, para que puedan recibir información de recursos que puedan estar a su disposición, de un posible encuentro con autoridades de ICE, si eso es algo que posiblemente le afecta a su familia o a sus amistades. Lo importante es que hay un grupo como para el que ella pertenece y organizaciones como las nuestras que pueden ayudarles dependiendo del tema. Simplemente es que nos conectemos todos del uno al otro para poder rendirle los servicios necesarios a nuestras comunidades. With that said, I'd like to now have a little more fun. I mean, I don't know how many of you are having fun, but I am. Because maybe it's because I'm not the one sweating up here and they are. But, so for me, I think it's a little different, perhaps. I'm not the one that's sweating, so to speak. But we'll get to you in just a moment because these things are very, very fun and they're always really important. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that we don't leave anybody in the audience with any unanswered questions. Does anybody in the chat or in the physical space here have any questions for our panelists? Because this is also for you guys to have this space to ask questions. Alguien tiene, bueno, antes de que prosigamos, quería asegurarme de que si hay personas en el espacio virtual o físicamente presentes aquí esta noche que tengan preguntas, que tengan la oportunidad de hacerlas ahora. Porque esto es un proceso participativo. Oh, disculpe, there we go.
Thanks so much for bringing together the Consul General and Vice Consul?
Deputy Consul.
Deputy Consul. Are there examples of other incidents that inform the way that you deal with crises now we should think about here in Commonwealth?
Well, let me say that that unfortunately we've seen some cases in which our main concern is that, for example, if it is a judicial process, that the due process is not that the actors are not following the due process. So that's something, some of our main concerns. That's why we have a robust legal assistance program. And our main objective is that our nationals could get access to the justice in the same conditions that as any other U.S. citizens could have in the country. And also, we have also seen some cases in which some of agricultural workers face some challenges or discrimination situations. Thank you. Agricultural workers are facing some challenges, discrimination situations. For example, employers could get their passports, or probably they don't pay what they told them at the beginning when signing the contract, and that kind of stuff. That's our daily job, and that's what we do here every day.
Bueno, para resumir, el trabajo en este consulado, primero que todo, es siempre asegurarse que sus nacionales consigan el debido proceso con respecto a la justicia, que cuando necesiten asistencia legal o algún tipo de proceso que posiblemente conlleve a un procedimiento jurídico, sus nacionales reciban los mismos derechos que cualquier otra persona en territorio y suelo estadounidense. I know that we have a few questions in the chat because I do see them pouring in. I'm happy to read those off since I do have access to them. So one of them, una pregunta va dirigida hacia usted, estimada cónsul, permítame un segundo aquí para poder acceder a la pregunta. La pregunta es, ¿el Consulado de la República Dominicana tiene un plan en pie para asistir a inmigrantes haitianos en Filadelfia que posiblemente estén escasez de recursos durante este tiempo de incertidumbre? Por favor, elabore.
Nosotros no tenemos ese plan, pero si se nos presentara la situación de que debemos ayudar a un ciudadano haitiano, lo haríamos de todo corazón, por humanidad. Son nuestros vecinos. En nuestro país yo creo que no hay una sola institución, una sola construcción, un edificio donde vivas, donde no habite un haitiano. Y nosotros son seres humanos, igual que nosotros, y lo valoramos. Realmente, para mí, es una situación de humanidad Si a mi consulado se presenta un haitiano con una situación difícil, yo haría todo lo posible por ayudarlo y me comunicaría con las instituciones correspondientes, por supuesto, ajustadas siempre a las leyes.
Mhm.
Igual que los haitianos, lo haría con cualquier ciudadano del mundo. Gracias.
Gracias. So just to reiterate here, so the question was to the Consulate of the Dominican Republic, and it was to ask if they had a plan in place to assist Haitian immigrants in Philadelphia who may lack resources in this time of uncertainty. Her flat honest answer was, do we have a physical plan to assist our neighbors? No, but that does not mean that we are unwilling. If any Haitian national came to us requesting assistance, we would be more than willing to provide them assistance. They're our neighbors. It is the humanitarian thing to do. When you look at any institution, structure, building, you will always find that Haitian hands helped craft it. So it would be unjust on our end to not do that. But I also want to mention that I wouldn't just do this for my Haitian neighbors. I would do this for any other national that came to us, minding that we would have to restrict ourselves to what their law says we are allowed to do. Aside from that, we would be willing to help in any way that we can. Now, the other question is for Ms. Isen. The idea of a WhatsApp group sharing locations of agents sounds very helpful. Is there a way that we could join such a group? Is there a list of such groups? And how do we know that these groups would be safe for us?
We have groups in the area of Upper Darby that I know of. I'm sure that other organizations, churches, or other nonprofits have other ways that they communicate with our community of immigrants. WhatsApp is the best way for us to communicate with them. If a person is interested in joining the group, they can send me their information and I will pass it on to the administrator of the group. They will vet them before they're added to ensure that it's not going to be someone who's really not part of the community, and then they would be added to it. But if you have a group of immigrants or people who would like to help, you can create your own group and you can help other communities within your area to develop that. And it has been very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
La idea de un grupo de WhatsApp para compartir ubicaciones de donde se ubican los agentes del ICE es muy útil y de mucha ayuda. ¿Hay manera de ser integrado a uno de esos grupos? ¿Hay un listado que nos indique la existencia de esos grupos y cómo sabemos que esos grupos son seguros para nuestras comunidades? Bueno, yo soy de Upper Darby y yo solo le puedo indicar a ustedes de nuestros grupos de Upper Darby y cómo funcionan. Ahora, si ustedes tienen el deseo de crear un grupo de esa forma, personas de su comunidad, personas que sean aliadas a esa comunidad, que se junten, que creen este sistema, estas conexiones y que se traten de expandir a las diversas comunidades de sus condados o municipios para crear esas redes de protección y de ayuda adicional. Having said this, I'd like to turn back to our legal team for a minute here, because you guys, I like the law, so you guys are going to be suffering for a little bit here. So going back to the legal section. So now I want to connect everything we've discussed to the commission. So how does the PHRC's jurisdiction over public accommodations allow it to address incidents of harassment or service refusal that targeted immigrants in local businesses. And I know you touched upon this a little earlier, but I'd like for you to have a chance to further elaborate.
Sure thing. Thank you. So before I, touch on your question, I just wanted to kind of, add on to some of what we've heard already and just kind of some reflections as I was hearing other answers earlier, and it's really interesting. And I think there may have been a question about this, kind of the way safe spaces have evolved over time, right, in the last couple of years. Just thinking about, when I was doing immigration advocacy work in 2017, right after the 2016 election, and how the landscape was changing then and what the landscape now looks like compared to then. And it's striking because on one hand, right, we see that spaces that were safe are no longer safe, right? And just to add some context to what we're hearing about what's happening in schools, what's happening in our neighborhoods, these spaces were previously protected, right? They were known as sensitive locations, or eventually became known as protected spaces. And the idea was this was a policy by immigration authorities, whereby they would limit enforcement actions to, they would not engage in certain enforcement actions in certain spaces, which included schools, which included hospitals, which included religious gatherings, ceremonies, processions, and so on. And so, thinking about kind of the advocacy that took place back then, there were still a lot of the fears that we see today, a lot of the fears around immigration enforcement, and your information being out there, wanting to alienate the kind of cooling effect, the chilling effect in communities. But you still had some spaces you would think, okay, well, I know that I'm not as afraid that maybe immigration enforcement is going to come for my child at school. I'm not as afraid, if I'm in the hospital and something happens to me or my family member, we are insulated to a certain extent. There are always exceptions. And obviously that's changed in 2026. But interestingly, one thing that has kind of persisted has been then as now, WhatsApp groups have been absolutely instrumental. And I think it's just really important to, I just kind of want to put this out to the group. It's important to continue to determine, what safe spaces look like, right? We've had to adapt in many ways. And I think, just something that's really key to kind of the way forward and moving forward is community and making, if you're going to make referrals, make them as warm as possible. Really vet each other, lean on each other, to determine the best ways for your individual communities, what works for, you. So anyway, just wanted to kind of share that reflection. It was really kind of powerful hearing your perspective. So thank you for that. Yeah. So coming back to kind of the legal, less exciting. No, I'm just joking. So again, it's 2026. And so we're seeing, an atmosphere where individuals are increasingly just feel emboldened, right, to engage in discriminatory activity, to harass individuals in public, right? Again, not limited to certain authority figures. We're talking about just in the community, in schools. No one is kind of is safe in that regard. And so, obviously, the immigration legal landscape is incredibly important. And we're at a time where people are, losing immigration benefits and are looking for relief, right? We're seeing TPS being rescinded left and right. We're seeing immigration laws constantly changing. And obviously that should be on everyone's radar. But also, in addition to that, again, I'm just kind of here to let folks know that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, there is recourse for individuals who maybe are documented, maybe, or undocumented, and who not necessarily are experiencing, something bad in the kind of immigration legal landscape, but in your day-to-day. Again, a lot of folks that we're talking about are community members, right? First and foremost, we're going to school, we're going to work, and so in any number of ways, people are experiencing discrimination. And so, you mentioned public accommodation specifically. And just, for the group, public accommodation very, very generally is essentially an establishment that is open to and serves the public or a location. So, under the law, it's an amusement resort accommodation, which is open to or accepts or solicits the patronage of the general public. But, when we're really kind of talking about, we're thinking about hotels, we're thinking about restaurants, parks, we're thinking about Commonwealth facilities, right? Colleges and universities. And so under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, it prohibits anyone who is an owner, an agent, an employer at any of these public accommodations to discriminate against other individuals based on any number of protected classes, which include national origin discrimination and national origin and ancestry. It's illegal in Pennsylvania to discriminate against someone on the basis of their national origin, their ancestry, their race, their sex, their religion, their disability. And so, what does that look like in the day-to-day? Public accommodation discrimination isn't necessarily limited to outright service refusal. It can be, right? Someone refuses to serve a patron on the basis of any one of those protected classes. It could be because they don't speak English or they perceive that the person doesn't speak English, or they think a person is from a specific country. But it also could include harassment. So you are, making the environment so hostile that this person is unable to have kind of that equal access and enjoyment to this public accommodation. You might be, engaging in degrading treatment towards an individual. And we're seeing this, right? We're seeing this happen in real time. And so, this is activity that is protected, that's illegal under the PHRA, and where, the PHRC can provide protections. So in terms of, your question was, how does the PHRC's jurisdiction allow it to address these incidents? So the Human Relations Act, that's one of our governing laws, and that's our primary governing law. It gives our agency the power to investigate any allegations of discrimination throughout the Commonwealth to see, if discrimination has taken place. Again, this is free. It's free to file a complaint. Anyone, regardless of status, can come to the PHRC and file a complaint. You do not need to be represented by counsel. You can if you'd like to, but it is not required. And once a complaint is filed, our agency will investigate any allegations of discrimination to determine if there's probable cause, if actually discrimination has taken place. If, an investigation finds that it has taken place, there are a number of kind of avenues. There has to be a conciliation that takes place. We try to bring the parties to the table and see if there is any opportunity to reach a resolution collectively that works for everyone. If that happens, great. If that doesn't happen, there may be continued opportunity for litigation and a public hearing, which is where then you will see me or my co-hearing examiner. And so, if discrimination is found, we engage in this investigation and it is found that discrimination has taken place, there are a number of remedies that we can, that are available. So it might be staff training. We might, engage in a required training for staff. We might engage, in conversations around policy changes or require policy changes, cease and desist orders, damages, right? Monetary damages, non-discrimination notices. So we not only resolve the dispute, in question, but we also address the patterns of discriminatory treatment. And, through that, we might also deter the same thing from happening again elsewhere.
Thank you. Una pequeña reflexión que tuve antes de que yo entrara a la respuesta de la pregunta era estos grupos de WhatsApp que siempre han existido y siempre han sido de buenísima ayuda para estas comunidades que necesitan ese tipo de conexión. Pero algo que también me ha dejado asombrada es siempre la capacidad, el cambio del clima alrededor, mejor dicho, de cómo se lidia con la comunidad migrante. En este país antes habían estos espacios que sí, uno se podía percatar de que sí, su estatus posiblemente no estaba regularizado, pero sabía que si uno iba a la iglesia o si uno iba a la escuela, uno nunca se iba a tener que preocupar de que migración me fuera a detener a mí, a mi familia o a mis hijos en estos espacios sagrados. Hoy en día vemos que eso no es el caso. Ahora entrando a la pregunta que se trata sobre cómo es que nuestra ley permite que la discriminación contra el origen nacional sea acobijada por nuestra protección de acomodo público, de alojamiento público. Y algo que es sumamente importante de entender es que nosotros, el alojamiento público simplemente significa cuando tú te abres y das la capacidad de serviciar a una comunidad al público. Y tú no puedes discriminar en contra de una persona basado en su origen nacional, seas el propietario, seas un agente o un empleado de dicho establecimiento. Y algo que nuestra agencia hace es que nosotros tenemos procedimientos de conciliación y de mediación. En ese proceso de conciliación, si las partes concuerdan que pueden resolver sus temas diplomáticamente, pues no se prosigue a ningún procedimiento adicional. Pero si no, entonces existen procedimientos judiciales que, dependiendo del resultado, llegaría a mí como a un proceso de juicio administrativo frente de mi persona, donde se resolvería el caso y se presentarían algunos remedios, uno de ellos siendo entregarle entrenamiento a los empleados de esa facilidad, posiblemente pueda ser una compensación monetaria y un sinnúmero de alternativas como remedios que estarían disponibles. Having said that, I'd like to turn very quickly to a question that struck a chord with me as we
Victor.
were.
Perdón.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that we offer interpretation services for anyone who may need them through Language Line. You've done so much translating. Nosotros ofrecemos servicios de interpretación para las personas que lo necesiten.
Don't worry, that's what I'm here for. That's kind of the job. Plus, this was my choice this evening, so. So, there was a question that, this is for DA Krasner specifically, because there was a question that as a hearing examiner Shahadi Cope was answering. I thought this would be a great follow-up. And it's connecting what you do to the PHRC. So while your office handles criminal matters, how can the PHRC and the PHRA serve as a parallel shield for the same people you protect? For example, if a victim is too afraid to go to the police but wants to report discrimination in the workplace, how do our offices bridge that gap? El micrófono.
Thank you. My office is supposed to enforce the criminal laws. That's what we do. We participate in investigating and the arrest and going to trial against people who commit crimes. Some discrimination is a crime. Some discrimination is ugly, hateful, but not a crime. So one way that we can work with our colleagues at the Human Relations Commission is when they are in contact with people who have been victimized in a way that is a crime. Let me give you some examples. In general, hateful words are not a crime, but if those hateful words are accompanied by a threat, not just a racist word, but also, I will kill you, followed by a racist word, that may be the crime of terroristic threats, depending on how it is given. Here's another example. If there are people, let's just say hypothetically, Mexicans who are undocumented, and during some sort of a raid, their children are pushed out into the street with no protection, cars going by, young children. Even if the raid is lawful, the mistreatment of the children may constitute the crime of endangering the welfare of a child. That is a crime in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that we prosecute all the time. The same is true for an assault. A physical assault may be discrimination. That is also a crime. If you break a nose, if you fire a gun, if you shoot someone, it may be a crime. Our office prosecutes people under state law. We absolutely are able to prosecute American citizens who commit crimes against undocumented immigrants. We absolutely are able to prosecute federal law enforcement who commit crimes against undocumented people. We absolutely are able to prosecute federal officials who commit crimes and then cover them up with lies by destroying evidence. Just for example, it is a crime to tamper with evidence. It is a crime to obstruct the administration of justice. It is a crime to intimidate witnesses. These are all crimes. And anyone who has been watching the news is well aware that there are reasons to believe some of these crimes are being committed in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in Minneapolis. So one way that we can support the very important work of the Human Relations Commission is when they come across something that they think might also be a crime, call us. We are happy to look at it and let you know whether we think it is a crime or not. We are happy to engage to make sure there is accountability, that we have even-handed justice for people who, due to their hateful ideology or due to their idea that they have all the power, may be willing to do things that, simply put, are crimes. Finally, I want you to know, when a state court prosecutor convicts someone, whether that is a federal official or that is a civilian, the President of the United States cannot pardon that conviction. You saw hundreds of people who led a riot on January the 6th, a few years ago, to try to stop our democracy. You saw that those people directly and indirectly caused the deaths of 5 police officers, 5 law enforcement officers, and you saw that the President of the United States pardoned them all. Why? Because it was in DC. DC is not a state. The President has the ability to pardon federal convictions. He has no ability whatsoever to pardon a state court conviction. So make no mistake, all around this country are state court prosecutors who are ready, willing, and able to make sure that the Constitution and the laws of this country, including the criminal laws, apply to people who are powerful, people who are rich, people who are employed as federal law enforcement or local law enforcement. We're ready to do it. You should not feel discouraged. You should not feel hopeless. If there's anybody who should be worried, it's anyone in law enforcement who thinks they are above the law.
Yes, so actually we have an online question for you, DA Krasner. Would you mind?
Contact immediate assistance. Are there any nonprofits that can assist us with an established step-by-step process to get information on who to call and what to do?
Okay. I'm the wrong person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can
Philadelphia
Okay.
Pacific.
Well, first of all, I think it's very important to know that there's something that we call consular access. It means that every single person has the right to ask for or to speak with their consulate. So if this person is from Mexico, he has or she has the right to speak with the Mexican consulate. But if this person is from South Africa, this person has the right to speak with the South African embassy or nearest consulate. And that happens with every single country. That's why through the consular access is that we are able to provide assistance to our nationals. In our case, we have daily contact with immigration authorities in order to provide assistance to our nationals.
I'm happy to connect with this individual offline as well and provide specific resources, but just kind of off the top of my head, some of the organizations that are in Philadelphia that come to mind, some of the nonprofits, Highest Nationality Service Center do a lot of work with individuals in the area. But also if someone is detained and then transported, which happens with a lot of individuals, right? In Pennsylvania, the facility that they would likely be at would be the Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. There are organizations around there that, work closely or have kind of connections to the center that may be able to facilitate contact. For example, Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center, used to have a legal orientation program out there, and they still provide services once a month once or twice a month at the facility. So certainly I'm happy to connect with kind of additional lists, but Philadelphia specific. Another resource I would also suggest is a lot of times when individuals are detained, there are some immediate needs, for example, not necessarily, I guess with the changing landscape now, but bond, was always a consideration. But there are kind of a number of rapid response groups and organizations that can assist with just kind of the immediate fallout, right? If it's a family member who has been the primary income earner of the family, and now the family is left without that individual and is needing assistance, maybe rental assistance, or maybe some kind of assistance related to medication or medical care, just things like that. There are organizations also on the ground that can maybe facilitate access to those resources, those very pressing issues.
Básicamente, disculpen.
Actualmente los consulados tienen un listado de organizaciones sin fines de lucro y de abogados que pueden asistir a esas personas. Yo sé que el consulado mexicano lo tiene, nosotros por igual lo tenemos y conocemos más consulados que también tienen eso. Aparte de que también se dan asesorías gratuitas en muchas de esas instituciones para ayudar a esas personas que necesitan esos servicios.
So, in essence, what we just discussed here was when you access the consuls, they have these extensive lists of non-profit legal or entities that can provide you with free consultation and free legal services so that you can access the services that you need on site and immediately for these types of issues. And that's the most important aspect I think they're all sharing with us this evening. But because of that question, it now leads me to Madam Consul from the Dominican Republic. Basado en una pregunta que acabamos de recibir, me dirijo a la dama cónsul de la República Dominicana. Ahora quiero hablar un poco sobre el impacto intergeneracional. ¿Cómo es que el trauma secundario de esta retórica antimigrante afecta a niños nacidos de inmigrantes en Estados Unidos, y cómo esta atmósfera de odio en el nivel personal se sigue manifestando en las familias hoy en día?
Bueno, me van a permitir, para responder esta pregunta, yo pasarle a mi vicecónsul encargado de asuntos migratorios, Carlos Domínguez.
So at this time, I'm going to let my vice consul answer this question.
Comienza la primera parte esta vez, disculpa.
No se preocupe. ¿Cómo es que este trauma secundario de la retórica antimigratoria afecta a niños nacidos de inmigrantes en Estados Unidos?
Bien, nosotros hemos visto de primera mano muchos casos en los que se ven afectados las familias, ya sea traumas psicológicos, ya sea otro tipo de trauma. Y el gobierno dominicano provee diferentes tipos de ayuda para estos casos, desde asistencia cuando están aquí, o ya si el padre o las familiares han sido repatriados, a través del Instituto de Dominicanas y Dominicanos en el Exterior, que es el INDEX. Ellos manejan programas con psiquiatras certificados tanto en el estado de Pensilvania como ya en República Dominicana para dar asistencia a estas personas que han sufrido los diferentes traumas.
So, we're going to talk about, how does the secondary trauma of anti-immigrant rhetoric affect U.S.-born children? We at the Dominican Consulate have seen this firsthand. And we have programs that help address these issues. One of them is called the Index. And this is how we have specialized psychologists, psychiatrists that help provide these specific certifications, especially when it's children of parents who've been repatriated. We want to ensure that they get the access and resources to address these harmful issues that they're facing, especially because their parents have been repatriated. Now we're going to have some additions here. See, this is exciting.
Very
That's
quickly.
how you know it's getting good. They're starting to take the microphone away from each other. I don't have to do any work.
Well, mental health is an issue now. We've been talking daily with our people, and they refer that they are under stressful situation because they don't know if they are going back to their homes after going to their jobs, or they need to go to an office. They don't know if they are going to be detained. And this situation is impacting even U.S. citizens from Mexico descent, or because they have fear that they are going to be detained on their racial profiling. And just the idea of having their kids at home with any family member that could take care of them, it's a nightmare. So every single day they live with this idea of probably I'm not going back home. So when we talk to the community, they refer that they are afraid and they need some kind of help, mental health help. And also we provide a service online for nationals that they are looking for some kind of a mental assistance. Thank you.
Algo que también quería anotar es que estamos viendo muchos problemas con la salud mental hoy en día, en particularmente porque estamos viendo que esto está ocurriendo hasta en ciudadanos estadounidenses que posiblemente son de ascendencia, en nuestro caso, mexicana, pero en otras nacionalidades, por el simple hecho de que esta presencia se está incrementando y este miedo de que yo no voy a regresar a mi hogar hoy porque van a discriminar en mi contra por mi condición de origen nacional o racial, me van a detener, me van a encarcelar y no voy a regresar a mi hogar. Por eso es que estos programas, como mencionó el vicecónsul, son importantísimos, porque estamos viendo que la salud mental de nuestras comunidades están en deterioro. Now, with that said, because we're running a little short on time because you guys have all been very interesting and eloquent this evening. We're unfortunately not going to be able to do the fun little case scenarios. Well, fun for me because it would have been work on your end. I just get to sit here, stand. But because we're running a little short on time and I want to respect everyone here tonight, I want to go to one of our final focus questions for this evening, and every panelist here will get to answer it with the last 15 minutes. So I want to talk about, what do you think, for everybody here and in the virtual space, what should be the major takeaways of this presentation? How can they be proper allies? And how can they navigate these hard conversations regardless of which side of the issue they fall on? and anyone can take it. But just to make sure that the consul of the Dominican Republic is aware, I'm just going to let her know.
Ujú.
Como estamos un poco cortos de tiempo, vamos a entrar a la última pregunta que todos los panelistas van a poder responder. Y vamos a platicar sobre qué son los puntos de mayor interés que la comunidad aquí y en el espacio virtual deben tomarse en cuenta, cómo pueden ser aliados adecuados y cómo pueden navegar conversaciones difíciles sin importar en qué lado de la discusión caigan.
Para mí, algo que es súper importante es que nuestras comunidades se eduquen. Cómo prepararse en caso de que suceda, de que uno de sus miembros sea repatriado, que me gusta más que la palabra deportado, gracias. Cómo prepararse y cómo preparar a sus niños. Existen información de diferentes organizaciones que por lo menos a nosotros nos ha llegado, cómo hablarle a sus niños acerca de la inmigración, dependiendo de la edad. Entonces, es recursos que muchas veces nosotros no tomamos ventajas de ellos. No solamente para los niños, para los papás, porque igual que como los padres tienen miedo de no regresar a su hogar, los niños perciben ese miedo y ellos tienen ese trauma. Y cuando ha sucedido, ha cambiado el comportamiento de los niños, ha cambiado el día a día de la familia. Tenemos muchas familias que tienen un hijo que es ciudadano norteamericano y él es el único que está saliendo incluso a hacer las compras. La familia, los padres no están yendo a trabajar por ese miedo. Todo eso está traumatizando a toda la familia. Entonces ese trauma es familiar, no es solamente de los papás, sino de todo. Entonces, prepararse, educarse, ¿qué necesito hacer para proteger a mis niños y a mi familia? Es muy importante. Y esos recursos existen. Entonces, es importante que nosotros que tenemos acceso a esos recursos, compartamos esto con nuestras comunidades.
So one of the most important things that we need to take away from tonight is that we all must educate ourselves, educate our children on these issues, and we have to become prepared for the potential inevitable event of repatriation. And I like the word repatriation. Thank you very much, Vice Consul. It's a cleaner sounding word than deportation, more elegant, if you will. And so in the event that such an action would take place, this trauma is not just of the parents, it is of the children, it is of the family as a whole. We see these families that are struggling. They don't go out. They stop going to work. They may have a U.S. citizen son or daughter, and they're the only ones that leave the house to do the daily tasks that the family needs. So it'll be of utmost importance that we not only educate ourselves, but our children, and prepare for an event that none of us hope to have to deal with, which is a potential repatriation.
I would certainly, I would say educating yourself, educating your loved ones. Kind of an important point that I always like to make is also our immigrant friends and neighbors are exhausted. Like, don't ask, the individuals who are dealing with a lot of this instability and insecurity to be the ones to also teach, right? I think it's really important that we educate ourselves and show up for each other and check in with each other, because again, a lot of this isn't outward, right? And so, right, some families may have that individual who is able to kind of be out and about and get the groceries and assist with kind of the external tasks. But there are a lot of folks who don't have that support system. So really, to the extent possible, it's just incredibly important to continue to check in on each other and build those kind of community support systems. And just to check in, even if it's a quick, WhatsApp, even if it's a WhatsApp, in your to the neighborhood. I got a little WhatsApp going in my neighborhood with my neighbors, and it's just like, hey, just check in with each other. If we need anything, let's just, shout it out to the group. Another thing, that Marisa already mentioned also is just, again, the safety planning. I think the way things have transitioned is such that we're certainly moving to a space where, you know, we have to anticipate the possibility that our rights are not always going to be respected. And we need to know what to do when that happens. And what I mean is, obviously you want to prepare for the worst, but then what if the worst happens? So just, become acquainted with kind of the know your rights materials that are out there, the materials that talk about what to do. For example, what are you documenting? What can you document, if you're seeing, violations happening before your eyes or happening to another person? I think it's incredibly important because, a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the work that our DAs do and our, the AG's office does, we need that documentation, right? We can't wait for that one big event to happen and then jump on it. We need, if we're seeing that pattern and practice, right, of discrimination, of these actions, like we just need to be sure that we're documenting that and sending it to the appropriate resources. And I think really the second part of your question was about, I'm sorry, can you repeat it about
How to navigate these hard conversations?
navigating these hard conversations? Something I personally always do is really, just reminding folks that this is a human rights issue, right? This is an issue that impacts us all. So we're not looking at, whether someone is here lawfully or not lawfully. As human beings on this earth, having this shared humanity, we all have the right to live a life of dignity, a life where we feel protected, in a country that we choose to create our roots in and settle down in. And so really, again, this is the human rights issue first and foremost.
So I just want to say to the attorneys here tonight, don't kill me. I know that was a serious compound question that I asked, but it wasn't intentional. Pero lo importante de esta discusión es que, primero que todos entiendan que las comunidades que están afectadas están cansadas. No pidan que ellos sean las personas que los eduquen. Edúquense por sus propias cuentas. Pero también tenemos que conocer y entender que debemos anticipar que nuestros derechos no todo el tiempo van a ser respetados y tenemos que escudriñar los recursos que están disponibles para poder protegernos y a nuestras familias, sea a través de grupos como WhatsApp, que yo tengo uno en mi comunidad, para conectar con mis vecinos, simplemente para asegurarnos de su bienestar.
Hector, you mentioned in one of your questions something about moral obligation or moral. Yeah. That's a beautiful phrase because I think that all of us plays in an important, a relevant role in this beautiful community of Philadelphia and also in the state of Pennsylvania. So every single person is an important piece of this puzzle. And if it is in our hands to help someone or to fight some nonsense myths, let's do it. For example, every time that we go to a meeting, we try to point out the contributions of the Mexican population. Sometimes, or you can hear every day the rhetoric that there's an invasion and that Mexicans are stealing, I don't know how many jobs. But it turns out that, for example, I don't know, you know, that Mexican companies generates around 200,000 job positions here in Pennsylvania, just in Pennsylvania. So it means that Mexican money, Mexican companies are investing here, and that immigration has many positive aspects. And also the Mexican population living here in Philly, well, you probably remember the old Italian market that now is it has a completely different phase with the Mexican population living there. So it's important that if we have the elements to fight back these terrible myths, let's do it. And let's keep our community informed. Thank you.
En una de las preguntas se había utilizado la frase del peso moral. Y creo que eso es una frase hermosa, porque eso refleja la labor que tenemos hacia adelante. Si nosotros tenemos la capacidad de entrar a espacios para resaltar las contribuciones de, en nuestro caso, la comunidad mexicana o la comunidad de quien sea, tenemos que hacerlo. Es nuestro trabajo de llevar esa campana día y noche y día para que las comunidades a las cuales nosotros hemos emprendido toda la vida entiendan que estamos aquí. Por ejemplo, hay compañías de México que están invirtiendo aquí por el trabajo de nuestras comunidades, pero siempre existe esa retórica de que no, la comunidad mexicana viene aquí a robarse los empleos, cuando es menos de la verdad, y sabemos que eso es falso. Estamos invirtiendo, estamos trabajando y hay que combatir la discriminación en donde sea.
Bien, yéndome un poquito también, apoyando un poco lo que dice Raúl, nosotros desde el Consulado Dominicano tenemos el deber de orientar a las personas, de educarlas, no solamente en los temas migratorios ni temas legales, sino también en temas financieros, en temas de cuidados de salud, en temas de cuidado personal, en temas educativos, en temas también que tengan que ver con temas psicológicos, como comentábamos anteriormente. Y nosotros nos dedicamos a eso, no solamente aquí en la oficina consular, sino de llevar esos servicios a todo el estado de Pensilvania y a todo el estado de Delaware, donde nosotros nos trasladamos todas las semanas. Donde haya un dominicano en esos estados, nosotros vamos a intentar llevar esos servicios, porque lo que queremos es intentar ayudar a la mayor cantidad de personas posibles para que la comunidad siga creciendo y siga desarrollándose de la mejor manera posible.
To add on to what Raul was saying, we offer a variety of services. It's not just in legal services, it's psychological, it's education, it's personal care, it's financial services, it's educational services. The point being that our goal is to ensure that we address our community's needs here and now to assist their various needs. Wherever a Dominican national is, we are going to be there to provide the services that community needs to make the best Dominican national possible.
I will be quick for a change. My oath is to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States. Almost all of those laws apply equally to immigrants, okay? That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm also supposed to seek justice. That's the other part of my oath. And justice is a moral notion. We are here to make sure that in a democracy where the law is supposed to apply equally, it applies. And that is what we are going to do. So if we have a situation where a crime has been committed, we're going to prosecute it. We're going to investigate it. But what I need is for immigrants to understand that they are protected by the law and the Constitution, that they are protected by local prosecutors, even if the federal prosecutors have sold out, which many of them have. We are here to protect in those situations, but we can't do that unless we are contacted when something bad happens. If there are people who are afraid to contact local police, contact us. If there are nonprofits, governmental entities that are receiving complaints of what may be crimes, we know if they're crimes. Call us. We'll tell you. And then we will provide the services that I am required to provide because it is my job. And those services are to protect the Constitution and the laws of the United States, which do protect immigrants.
Thank you. Mi trabajo es hacer cumplir las leyes y la Constitución de los Estados Unidos. Eso implica que las leyes se apliquen de manera igual. Eso incluye protecciones para la comunidad de inmigrantes. Si ustedes están siendo victimizados por gente que está violentando la ley, mi deber es de fiscalizar ese crimen, porque la comunidad inmigrante tiene los mismos derechos que cualquier otra comunidad. Si ustedes tienen miedos a acudir a la policía local, al cuartel local, por favor, comuníquense con nosotros y nosotros les rendiremos el servicio necesario, porque mi trabajo es hacer cumplir la ley, que los incluye a ustedes como personas protegidas, como cualquier otra persona en este piso de Estados Unidos. That's it. Well, I just want to close this evening by saying thank you all for being here, whether it was virtually or in person. I also want to thank our esteemed panelists who were just incredible. And I don't know about you guys, but there's something different about the two consuls. I can't quite place it, but there's just something distinctly different. And but to ensure that we close off with a beautiful evening, I'd like to give it back to Deputy Director Garcia to send us off for the evening.
All for being here. Gracias por estar aquí. La información ha sido muy importante y lo que me gustaría decir es que debemos de hacer otra sesión para ver si podemos expandir la conversación y dialogar de algunos de los servicios que ustedes tienen y expandir en algunos ejemplos. I'd like to see us continue this conversation in the future, maybe another session, because I think it's important that we allow the consulates to expand a bit more about the services that they provide, the protections that are offered under the Constitution, because there is some misinformation regarding that. But other than that, I just want to thank everyone for being here and for participating, those of you that are online and those of you that are very here present. Thank you so much on behalf of E.D. Lassiter and our commissioners. Thank you and have a great night. Safe drive home.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Consul Carlos Obrador, thank you for coming. You are always welcome to the Mexican Consulate. Thank you.
Thank you.